Sheikha Hend Al Qassimi is a multifaceted Emirati princess, an accomplished editor and writer, successful entrepreneur, architect, and committed philanthropist. She has a master's in marketing, management, and communications from the Paris Sorbonne University. Shirley Machaba is the CEO of PwC Southern Africa. She is a natural leader with extensive industry experience and a sterling track record, inspiring the way people behave and think and setting the scene for exceptional organizational performance. Clare Akamanzi is the CEO of the Rwanda Development Board and cabinet member. She is an international trade and investment lawyer who has served the government of Rwanda in several senior positions for the last 15 years. She was a young global leader of the World Economic Forum and was named one of Africa's top 50 powerful women by Forbes in 2020. Eva Mattheeussen is the head of human resource at DHL Global Forwarding, Middle East and Africa. She has been with the company for 15 years and has been at the helm of multiple teams, many of which have since garnered notable HR accolades. She has worked in countries across different regions, from Germany, Belgium, Singapore, and Kenya, to her current home in the United Arab Emirates. The panel moderator is CNBC Africa anchor, Fifi Peters.
Right, any industry that responds to the new needs and the challenges of a pandemic-ridden world will be the big winners of the future. And companies and corporates that have had to adapt new ways of working. Surveys prove that this agility is now paying off in improved productivity. Companies that are customer-focused, that are people-driven, that are tech-enabled, and that are flexible are the agility champions. That is according to PwC and research that they did. So how are corporate CEOs redrafting their company work ethics to embrace sustainable business practices as a must for the future? And are companies also in the process including diversity and female champions in the C-suite, especially now as there is increasing evidence that where women have led countries and companies, the success rate for COVID-19 management has also been higher. So I'm excited to get into this discussion with a fantastic lineup of ladies, as you have seen. First of all, a good afternoon to you all and a happy International Women's Day. So I'd like to begin, if you will allow me, with my own personal experience of the past year. So CNBC Africa was one of the first, or if not the first, I stand to be corrected, broadcaster to broadcast a live television show from home. It was my living room. And I had to immediately adapt to becoming the anchor, the technical person, the camera person, the lights operator, the producer of the show, because the show had to go on. As you can imagine, there was a lot of trial and error during the process. In fact, on one occasion, the show started 20 minutes late because the technology that we used had failed us. And we had to make a plan. 10 minutes into, or 10 minutes left of the show, I was able to broadcast via Skype from my laptop. So I'd like to then, ladies, begin by asking you your individual experiences over this past year in adapting and responding to the changes that the pandemic has brought towards your respective industries. And Shirley, if you'll allow us to begin with you, as you do delve further into these agility champions, as it were, but what changes have you and your industry had to make to ensure that business went on under quite trying circumstances?
Good afternoon, Fifi, and thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to hearing the thoughts of other panelists and also sharing my thoughts. It's really exciting to realize that during the pandemic, we had the new normal. It's still going on. However, it will be important for companies to survive if they combine agility, flexibility, customer focus, technology, and all those things, so that at least they are able to be sustainable. I must indicate that, yes, you are right. We had the private company survey, which covered 53 countries around, EMEA, which is your Europe, Africa, and Middle East. It's really very evident in that report that the companies that are really doing well during this time, it's really around those who embrace agility, resilience, and combine their strategies to focus on people and technology. I must also come back to your question to say, from PwC side, and I think it goes without saying that it's across the industries, the tone at the top is not necessarily around communication. It's around the decisions that we make, the behaviors that we display. It's also important to lead by example. I must indicate that, during the COVID pandemic, it tested us individually and, collectively to really showcase that we can direct the team and lead confidently. With PwC, we really made sure that we don't bombard our people with a lot of information. Communication was centralized so that at least it's concise, clear, and consistent. We ensured that it's also around key messages regarding well-being, regarding the updates as government changed the guides, and also around working from home. Right. We are really fortunate from PwC side because you'll agree with me that because of the nature of the work that we do, a majority of our workforce, in fact, more than 90% of our workforce is more mobile, and we have few people who are office bound. Right. So we had to make sure that based on the investment in technology that we embarked on some years ago, even before COVID-19, we seamlessly transitioned the whole firm to work from home. Yes. Yeah. So it was very easy for us. And, the rest is history. Even today, you can see me, I'm working from home, and there's no issue.
I can see that exactly. But of course, Shirley, it wasn't seamless for all industries. And Sheikha Hend, I'd like to come to you and just ask about your personal experience within your industry. It's leisure, it's beauty, it's fashion that you deal with, in which, we had to be physically present before COVID-19 to access a lot of your content. So just talk to us about the past year and the transition that you have had to make to ensure that your audience and your readers were still able to access your content, albeit from your living room.
Well, as you can see, we've become, we have to look at every cloud with a silver lining. I mean, we're blessed with Zoom, thankfully, but we've also had to adapt new ways, make it more interesting for people to work. For example, I'm talking to you from my car, which makes it easier for us. We can have a meeting from a car thanks to Zoom, because we're stuck in traffic for at least an hour every day, maybe, or at least two. And when it comes to my work ethics and how we've adapted in our own workforce, I think everyone should make the effort of investing in their own clients and their own students and their own staff members. So we've offered vaccinations for our own staff. We're looking more at not working harder, but more at working smarter. I mean, I know these are old quotes that we've heard 100 times, but they actually make sense to us today.
Yes.
At least in my modest opinion.
No, agreed, 100%. And you've just taken this conference to a next level by actually participating from your car and showing in real time your flexibility and agility to respond to the current situation. And if I can come to you, Eva, next, because I think that you are also in one of the industries that have partially benefited from COVID-19. I mean, we relied so heavily on the freight industry because a lot of the things that we could usually walk to the store to get, we couldn't because those stores were closed. But notwithstanding the benefits of the pandemic, just talk to us about how you had to navigate the disruption it did bring to your industry via supply chains, and also perhaps having to quickly accelerate capacity to meet the demand from all of us who are clicking and shopping.
Yeah, thank you. We definitely had the capacity challenge, and that's not yet over today. So we do see, you started by also asking like the changes that we had to make. So for us, a real priority was making sure that we have for our frontline, and we provide them a safe work environment. So that's been really a priority for us, and making sure that we also engage them in a very good way. We had our Heroes Move cargo campaign as well to thank them for their personal risk that they took during this time, and also making a high exposure. Yeah. So we have been while leading the COVID team here as well in the Middle East and Africa. We saw as well that we had to change the way of the leadership, going from, first of all, always very result focused and leading them as well with that part. It's now being shifted to also having more that leading with trust, and also that change in I would say with that trust part, that's really that has been a shift for us. But overall, I think today we have been recovering well. Also campaigning wise, we have done a lot of we're on the Africa Summit, right? So we have done a lot in terms of like campaign with the we called it the Ubuntu campaign from China into the region. And now I think the capacity challenge that you refer to is mainly now on our ocean freight side, but I think that the team is well managing that.
Right. No, certainly a work in progress is still for all of us. Claire, last but not least, I mean, the middleman between the private sector and government, connecting capital to the projects on the ground that needed funding. And traditionally, you guys would go out and visit these countries, but of course you couldn't do that anymore because the borders were even locked. So talk to us about the Rwanda Development Board strategy to transition in this time and adapt to new ways of doing things, particularly industries that did come up during this pandemic that were in need of crucial funding.
Thank you very much, Fifi, and happy International Women's Day to everyone on the panel and everybody following this discussion. It's really a pleasure to be able to have this discussion on Women's Day and to see Sheikh Hend doing that in a car. I think it's a truly different and new world, but a very functional one as well. So this works. Now, for us at the Rwanda Development Board, our job is to promote economic development by supporting the growth of the private sector, and that includes investments, tourism, among others. Obviously, these are the sectors that were most affected over the last 1 year because the world came to a standstill economically, especially, and that affected our economy. Our economy was at its best in 2019. Every indicator that you had in Rwanda did its best in 2019. Our economy grew by 9.4%, which is among the highest, not just in Rwanda's history, but also in globally. Number two, our investments hit a record of $2.46 billion, which we had not done any time before. And again, in 2019, our tourism grew the highest it had ever grown, which was 17% year on year. And so 2019 was such a peak and a very happy moment for us economically. And then COVID happened in 2020, which basically affected how we performed. Our economy is expected to contract by about 0.2%. We expect our investments reduced by half. And our tourism, we only made 30% of what we usually made in 2019 in 2020. So obviously COVID-19 was a big setback in our momentum of growth as a country, which was really positive and going really well. Now, obviously, that meant that we had to adjust in many ways as an organization that was leading private sector growth in our country. And I think the first one was a total focus going to managing the pandemic. We had our plans, we had our economic growth priorities as a country, and right from the head of state, the president of our country, the prime minister, our focus shifted, and we gave a lot of focus on managing COVID-19, which had not been planned for. And so it took time, it took resources, but that shift was important because we had to deal with COVID-19. We had cabinet meetings every 2 weeks and just focusing on COVID-19. We had a task force that I belong to as well as a member, which is chaired by the Prime Minister of the country, that looks at everyday management of COVID-19. So I think the first new thing was a change of focus and giving a lot of time and resources to COVID-19. The second one was just changing the culture of doing business. As you said, Fifi, our organization is very customer facing. We're always talking to people, we're always marketing, we're always processing. And then suddenly you're not meeting people anymore. What do you do to continue promoting the country and investments? And so we had to go into remote working mode. We started reaching out to investors online. We moved all our services online. We processed work permits, we processed company registration, investment certificates, all online. And the good thing is that we had already started a strong automation program. We only expedited and moved everything online to make that happen.
All right.
And also our staff just changing the culture of not meeting people, because we're so used to meeting people and promoting and looking at their body language and knowing if the deal is coming or it's not coming. And now you have to do that online, and you can't really be able to see if your pitch is really getting to their soul and their heart, and you have to work with what you see. But we had to change that and learn how to work remotely.
All right.
But the maybe last point I want to talk about, Fifi, is
Claire,
also strategy.
can I jump in, and perhaps you can make that last point as we wrap up this discussion? You'll be surprised how quickly time is going, but we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'd like to speak with you guys, you ladies, about the way forward, because it is known that COVID-19 has had a disproportionately unfair impact on women. We've been more hit than men. And I'd like to understand how corporates are thinking going forward in dealing with this issue and ensuring that all the strides that we have made to try and close the gap between men and women in the workplace are not undone. So Shirley, perhaps thinking and a comment from you in this regard as we wrap up this conversation, as you also reflect on what you'd like to leave the viewers with on this International Women's Day.
Thank you again, Fifi. It's no brainer. All of us have been hit hard. However, this is an opportunity for us to change the narrative, to make sure that we have an opportunity to really address the gender equality, in the sense that we look at practices, policies, to make them gender neutral. I must indicate that, that will also affect the pay gender gap that it's more around making sure that we provide equal opportunities to everyone through our recruitment processes, through our promotion processes as well. I'm proud to indicate that from PwC side, we have already re-looked at all those practices, policies, to benefit our people. We have launched the gender-based violence policy that is now giving our people access to financial resources, support emotionally, and otherwise. Yeah. And we don't normally only focus on our people. We also have a lot of societal purpose initiatives that that benefit our clients as well as the society at large. If I can just single out a few of them, we are appointed the external auditors for a Solidarity Fund, and for us, we didn't even blink an eye, because we knew that this is going to benefit majority of the population, which is female. We also made sure that through our procurement processes, we really promoting gender equality, making sure that we spend towards those businesses that are owned by females in particular.
All right. Okay. Okay, Shirley, sorry, I have to jump in there. Definitely a follow-up conversation. Sheikha, Hend, as you reflect on the parting message to the wonderful ladies that have joined the panel, and how we go forward and make sure we're progressing in empowering women in the workplace, and especially for females who, from working from home, have had, to be caretakers and change the diapers and make sure that everyone is fed at the same time, handle boardroom and strategic decisions. How, in your view, as you reflect, should performance be measured when it comes to women and the hybrid working from home and the office model?
I think women can work at home and at the office. I don't really think it makes a difference. But like I told you before, when it's more a measurement of how much they produce, how much they can bring forward. So if they want to work, women are welcome to work, but they need to produce, they need to come back with results. You have to give them milestones, and you have to see, can they achieve those milestones? And I can tell you for a fact that a lot of women have achieved those milestones.
Right.
And it's because a lot of women are actually used to multitasking. This is not something new for them. This is something that they're used to. This is their second nature.
Right, right. Wonderful comment there. And Eva, to bring it back to you as we talk about moving forward, I mean, for the women who perhaps choose to stay more at home than in the office, is there a risk of being overlooked here when it comes to promotions or climbing higher up the ladder by the lack of physical presence or visibility at the workplace?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, women are always being overlooked. I mean, whether they deliver or not, they're always given a second. They're not given the second. They're not given a chance, which is why a woman has to work twice as harder. I mean, it's easy for a man to be recognized because they think, oh, a man can't fall pregnant, or a man isn't. He won't be the first choice to stay home with the kids.
Right.
But it's expected from the woman anyway. But she'll do it anyway, and she'll do it proudly, and she'll do it very well anyway.
Certainly. Thanks so much for the additional comment there. Eva, your view here?
Sorry about that.
I do really also believe in that. So it's not only, I think, a risk for women here, but I think for people in our industry, it wasn't common that people were working from home. So also for the men working from home, I think a lot of the opportunities that are coming available in the workplace are via a lot of also informal discussions. So if you're not part of that discussion, it is really important to find a way to become and to stay visible also when you are working from home. And we're very well aware of that. And the programs that we are providing for our workforce is really making sure, like, how can you make sure you internally strategic leverage on your network? How can we support you by that? How can we set up certain internal dialogues with more senior staff so that you are getting that visibility? So that is something that that we work on very hard to make sure that our people working from home are not getting overlooked. But that's, I think that's a very interesting theme to continue also debating with my colleagues, with my HR colleagues as well.
Certainly. HR colleagues all over the world. And Claire, last but not least, just final thoughts from you on government interventions that can be made to ensure that we keep moving the needle when it comes to female empowerment, and certainly to ensure that the progress that Rwanda has made over the years is not undone.
Thank you, Fifi. It's true, promotion of gender parity and empowering women has been a central figure in Rwanda's economic development plans, but also as a country, it's a priority. And that's why today, 61% of our parliament is composed of women, which is the highest in the world. 50% of our cabinet is women. And also, just the organization that I lead, the C-suite composition of women is 57%. So it's been a culture in the country to really promote women. And I like to tell people that this is something that has been very deliberate by our president, His Excellency Paul Kagame. When he always tells us, when he's given a list of appointments, he always asks how many women are on that list in that particular organization. And if there are not enough women, he'll send back the list until women are found. And that's really the kind of leadership that we need, not just at the national level, but also at the organizational level. So this is something we continue. And specifically for post-COVID-19 recovery, we've put in place an economic recovery fund of $100 million. We have done some flexible reforms in tax payment and tax waivers. We've encouraged banks to really support recovery by postponing their dividends distribution, but also being flexible in payments. And we've done these particular reforms thinking about small and medium enterprises, because that's where many women are affected, and that's where women are really also participating in the economy, not just at the high level, but also doing at the SME level. So these are the reforms that we put in place, and we think that promoting women, supporting women empowerment has to be deliberate by leaders.
Certainly nothing further to add there, Claire. And ladies, you know, so much to say on this discussion, on this topic, so little time. We have to wrap up the discussion there for now. But of course, this event is happening throughout the day, and a lot more ideas and learnings will be shared. Thanks to you, Ms. Shirley, Sheikha Hend. Thank you, Ms. Eva, and of course, Ms. Claire, for a wonderful topic. I mean, Gugu, you were talking earlier about the gender parity gap, and I came across an interesting statistic from the World Economic Forum. So last year, or rather, in 2020, the pay gap between men and women increased to 257 years. 257 years. I mean, that's not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime, not in your children's lifetime, and not in your children's children's lifetime, that we will be closing the gap if we continue on this path. And this 257 years, Google, was actually 55 years more than in 2019. So you can certainly see there that we were going in the wrong direction. Will it change? That's the hope.